Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me and allowing me to continue to be your daily advocate. If you're new here or you're not subscribed for any reason, please do me a huge favor and hit the subscribe button. Thank you to all of you who have been watching and following me for so long. It truly means a lot, and I'm glad that I can be this person.
Lots of news, a lot has happened in the last 12 to 24 hours here. EU securities regulator, we covered this late last weekend here, are highly considering the recommendation to ban proof-of-work crypto like Bitcoin, ladies and gentlemen. This would follow suit with other places around the world. We know China has done it and a couple other places. If they do this, you have to ask yourself, will it follow suit in the United States too? And how does renewable energy play into this understanding of this? But we got more to go over. That's just the beginning. So keep that in the back of your mind as we move through this material today, that, not only are we seeing EU Parliament recommend banning stablecoin, we know that Christine Lagarde has come out from the European Central Bank and said she's concerned that we need to get crypto regulations done immediately, as soon as possible. Russia could use digital assets to evade economic sanctions recently put in by SWIFT. Now take a look at this. So we saw this yesterday, late day, Russia being removed from SWIFT. And then there was some confusion about whether they're being completely removed or whether it's just heavier sanctions. We'll take a look at here. We get a better picture of what's actually going on here. First, we commit to ensuring the selected Russian banks are removed from the SWIFT messaging system. This will ensure that these banks are disconnected from international financial systems and harm their ability to operate globally. Second, we commit to imposing restrictive measures that will prevent Russian central bank from deploying its international reserves in ways that undermine the impact of our sanctions. Third, we commit to acting against people and entities who facilitate war in Ukraine and harmful activities of the Russian government. Specifically, we commit to taking measures to limit the sale of citizenship, so-called golden passports, that let wealthy Russians connected to the Russian government become citizens of our countries and gain access to our financial systems, which can obviously help them obfuscate money through those wealthy people in their accounts and citizenships. So fourth, we commit to launching this coming week, transatlantic task force that will ensure the effective implementation of their financial sanctions by identifying and freezing the assets of sanctioned individuals and companies that exist within our jurisdictions. As part of this effort, we are committed to employing sanctions and other financial enforcement measures on additional Russian officials and elites close to the Russian government, as well as their families and their enablers, to identify and freeze the assets they hold in our jurisdiction, so on and so on. So you see where they're going here, right? But let's understand this, because Jim Rickards, economist, gold guy, worked with the government in plenty of different situations here, and he says there may be a loophole, basically, is what I point out from what his comment is. He says, if you ban some banks and not others, there's an easy workaround by using banks not banned. Foreign banks can front for you by leaving beneficial owner line on SWIFT MT form blank. If central bank can pay send, they can act as a fiscal agent for banned banks. So we may not have all of the loopholes closed to truly get Russia's attention here. And listen to this comment from Jim Rickards as well. Please allow me to simplify the SWIFT discussion. Russia doesn't get dollars for free, they get dollars for oil. They are the third largest oil producer. If you ban SWIFT payments, Russia will stop selling oil. That's about 9% of global output. There's an energy shortage already. The results will be a global depression. And the EU is the biggest buyer, I believe, if I understand correctly here, or certainly one of them, from Russia in their oil and gas. Then we saw this reminder yesterday that I played for you. Listen to this quick 28 seconds here as a reminder of what the world is now discussing as an undertow to the actual war and conflict that has happened. It is the SWIFT sanctions and the ability of Russia to use digital assets and cryptocurrencies to obfuscate the SWIFT sanctions. Listen.
Russia, China, Iran, and many other countries don't like the domination the United States has over the SWIFT system, and it really is only a matter of time before there are multiple systems. Bitcoin is already functioning to a degree like that. So this would be a very dangerous step because it would accelerate the end of the SWIFT monopoly.
And there you have that, right? So the mention of crypto, I mean, there was people out here on crypto Twitter saying we weren't allowed to talk about this. Well, I can tell you something. It is worth talking about, and it doesn't mean that we're trying to diminish the safety that we wish and pray for the people that are hung up in the middle of this conflict. But it is very real, the idea and understanding. And I'm about to show you some more evidence here in a second. Jim Rickards goes on to say in a heater of posts last night, if you look at the membership of EU and NATO and the SWIFT Executive Committee, there's a huge degree of overlap. If SWIFT kicks out Russian banks, I'm not sure that Russia will care about logistic distinctions. They will see SWIFT as NATO. This thing is moving towards World War III quickly. Let's hope that Jim Rickards is wrong, and let's hope that we get a resolution to this conflict. But with that said, linked to ask a really great question in this tweet here. What if Russia is a catalyst to flipping the switch? Similar to El Salvador announcing Bitcoin as legal tender. What if Ripple announces it stands behind the sanctions? Are we entering the final act? It is a worthy question. You know, ECB urges haste on crypto regulation in the wake of Russian sanctions. It is to be able to monitor Russia and not allow them to get around the sanctions, right? The question goes even further because we'll have to understand too that India is in the process right now of exploring ways to set up a rupee payment mechanism for trade with Russia to soften the blow on New Delhi. They're all looking to set up something to get around sanctions because they don't want to be harmed because Russia's doing bad things, and that's who they deal with because they still need what they need in their countries. Here's a reminder from Gold Telegraph. Russia and China recently agreed to the 30-year gas deal we covered here with the new pipeline, which is settling in euros and not dollars. I also showed you over the last couple days and even a year or two ago that Russia and China actually have their own financial system that does not need SWIFT, but it doesn't include the rest of the world. So how do we deal with that? And here's even more evidence that back in 2018, from Jack the Rippler here, proof that Russia could, or he says will use XRP as a bridge asset. They have been tested XRP since 2018. Now, this is from Atlantis Press originally, and if you look back through here, it does go through that does appear to suggest that Russia, in fact, has at least tested or dabbled in the use of Ripple from back in 2015. One of the toolkit projects based on Mechanism's blockchain technology was Bank of Russia project and the cross-border transfer implementation. In the first half of 2018, the Bank of Russia Innovative Laboratory conducted research on testing the possibility of cross-border settlements using Ripple platform. The system technology assumed that the settlement, participants had special accounts open in national payment systems and addresses in the Ripple network. It goes on and on and so on to say the use of XRP transfers of equivalent fiat currencies issued by each participant, the national bank. You know, if we were to see this, I propose the understanding that this may be why, if this were to happen, we don't know that it will, but if this were to happen, we have to ask ourselves, wouldn't that be the biggest motivator in this SEC versus Ripple case, and certainly from the Treasury and FSOC, to deem something like the XRP escrow systemically important if we should see something like that, so Russia doesn't have a huge control in what they're using with the XRP token and the ledger itself, should that take place. I think that could be certainly a motivator, because what we're talking about here is not really the conflict being the motivator, but the sanctions because of the conflict and the obfuscation of that. So we will keep an eye on that. And I have something else for you to look at too. The conversation gets even deeper. Check this out. This is George Gammon right here. Macroeconomist, addict, and investor, real estate, libertarian, all of it. He's fantastic. I've covered him before. He breaks down, not only is he great at breaking down or talking about the economy, which can be very boring to a lot of people, but he's an excellent communicator and brings everyone with him when he does. I've learned a lot from him and I love his channel. But here he says here, I started researching Ripple to see if Russia might use a SWIFT workaround, as many have suggested. He says, FYI, if you understand Ripple, you understand the euro-dollar system. However, David Schwartz comes in and says, there really isn't any such thing as permission to use the XRP ledger. It's governed by objective rules that don't care who follows them, just that they be followed. And here is Matt Hamilton. Right here, we know Matt Hamilton, RippleX developer right here, principal developer advocate. Ripple is a US company, so Russia would not be able to just, if sanctions kick it, use it if sanctions kick in, I believe he was trying to say. If you mean XRP and the XRP ledger, that is decentralized, permissionless blockchain, and so by definition, no one could stop them by using it or from using it. But I fail to see the euro-dollar comparison, he says. And they go on to discuss the difference between the euro system and the XRP ledger being decentralized. But the point here is simply this, is that if we're talking about the XRP or XRP ledger, it is decentralized and no one could stop them from using it. And that's where I believe you set the tone for this case, and you could see the Treasury come in regardless of this case and say, you know what, you let us worry about this, because if we're going to see this asset be used, then we're going to have to deem it systemically important, and we're going to need the rest of that escrow. I mean, that could be a forced buyback between Ripple. I don't see that happening for us as retail investors at this point. I've pondered that question a lot too. However, look at what it could lead to if such events were to continue to blossom. Take a look at this. This is Jim Rickards again, talking just probably a year or two ago, I believe it was, and some time ago, and he's talking about new U.S. sanctions on Russia, and I believe this was back during the Crimea invasion that happened from Russia. You see a pattern there. And take a listen to what he says about cryptocurrency and electronic SDR. Take a listen here.
All these countries are trying to get out from under dollar hegemony, and that's going to happen.
And then there goes the power of the U.S. to impose these sanctions, right?
Correct, because if you, first of all, they're all building alternate payment systems. Even the German foreign minister the other day said Europe needs an alternate payment system. They could do cryptocurrencies. I'm not saying buy Bitcoin. I don't like Bitcoin at all. But you could create a new cryptocurrency with a distributed ledger with China and Putin. So imagine a Xi coin and a Putin coin. They could denominate it in SDRs. That's a special drawing right. That's the world money that comes from the IMF. They could back it up with gold. And notice that the dollar is not involved. Everything I just described doesn't involve the dollar. So that's why this could, if the U.S. doesn't reassert dollar hegemony, one good way to do that would be if the U.S. started buying more gold. I don't expect that to happen, but that would be part of my advice. If the U.S. doesn't do that, again, this whole alternate system, it's being created now. This is not science fiction, but it could affect the dollar very, very rapidly.
And if that were to be the case, the way Jim just laid that out, wouldn't that even lend more to the argument of how the United States would see it very, very much in their favor to take over the escrow, or to force Ripple to become a central bank and be a part of, let's say, the U.S. Treasury or the Federal Reserve, and have access to that escrow every month that it's released, to really prop up and backstop the Fed and the dollar that is being fled from in these new systems. And wouldn't it also be to the point that because of the interoperability of the Interledger Protocol and the XRP ledger itself being a decentralized exchange to the world, wouldn't it also lend itself that if we are going to see multiple regions and countries around the world develop their own little siloed payment systems to avoid SWIFT, then wouldn't it be something like the XRP ledger to bring them all together for one federated experience?
So enjoy your day, everybody. I'm always here for you. Leave any comments or questions below, and be sure to subscribe. But thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you. Enjoy your day, and I always have your back. So thanks so much, everybody.